Hey everyone, I'm 26, married to Mark for 3 years, and what I'm about to tell you started 2 summers ago when his younger brother, Jake, began staying over every single time Mark left for a work trip. I never thought I'd be the woman who kept a secret this big, but here we are. If you want to know how far this went, how it felt, and what finally made me stop, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and let's get into it. Mark and I live in a quiet cul-de-sac outside Charlotte. White picket fence, two-car garage, the whole postcard. He's a regional sales manager, gone 3 to 5 days every other week. The first time Jake showed up, Mark had already kissed me goodbye at the airport curb. I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. Jake stood there in a faded UNC hoodie, duffel slung over one shoulder, holding a pizza box like a peace offering. Mark said, "You hate eating alone," he grinned. I laughed because it was true and let him in. That night, we stayed up past midnight on the back deck, fire pit crackling, crickets loud enough to drown out the guilt I hadn't earned yet. Jake talked about grad school, about wanting to design solder roofs, about how Mark always got the spotlight growing up. I listened, wine glass sweating in my hand, noticing the way the firelight caught the gold flecks in his eyes. When he reached to refill my glass, his fingers brushed mine. Just a second, long enough for a spark to jump the gap. I pulled back first, said I was tired, and went to bed with my heart racing like I'd sprinted up the stairs. The next morning, Mark FaceTimed from Atlanta. Jake was in the kitchen making pancakes, shirtless because the AC was acting up. I angled the phone so Mark only saw my face. "Tell my little brother to put his shirt on," Mark joked. I laughed too loud. Jake flipped a pancake, winked at me over the griddle, and I felt heat crawl at my neck. Nothing had happened, not really, but the air in the house felt different, like someone had opened a window and let summer pour in. Over the next few trips, the pattern set in. Mark leaves Monday before dawn. Jake texts, "Pizza or Thai?" He arrives with takeout and a six-pack, claims the guest room, and we fall into this easy rhythm. Movie on the couch, feet accidentally touching, then not so accidentally. I told myself it was harmless. Jake was family. Mark trusted him. I trusted me. But I started counting the days until Mark's next trip, the way kids count down to Christmas. I'd catch myself in the mirror choosing softer lip gloss, a sundress that tied at the waist. I'd scold my reflection. "Stop it. You're married." Yet every time the garage door rolled up and Jake's Jeep pulled in, my stomach flipped like I was 16 again. The first time we crossed the line, it was raining. Thunder rattled the windows, power flickered. We were on the living room rug playing cards because the Wi-Fi died. Jake dealt. I accused him of cheating. He leaned over to prove the deck was fair, and suddenly his face was inches from mine. I could smell the rain on his skin. I don't know who moved first, maybe both of us. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing my jaw, and when our lips met, it felt like the storm outside had moved into my chest. We broke apart, gasping. "We can't," I whispered. "He knows," he said, but his eyes said something else. We sat there, knees stretching, lightning strobing across the walls. I waited for shame to crash over me. Instead, warmth pooled low in my belly, a slow, sweet ache. Jake reached for my hand, interlaced our fingers, and just held it. No kissing, no rushing, just the weight of his palm against mine while the rain hammered the roof. When the lights came back on, we pretended nothing happened. He slept in the guest room. I lay awake in the king bed that suddenly felt too big, replaying the pressure of his mouth, the way his breath hitched when I sighed into the kiss. I told myself it was a fluke. One moment. Never again. But the next trip came, and the next, and each time Jake walked through the door, the word never shrank smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Mark's trips got longer, sometimes a full week. Jake started bringing an overnight bag instead of a duffel, like he belonged here. I stopped pretending I didn't notice. We developed rituals. Tuesday nights, we cooked together. Nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread. But Jake insisted on dancing while the water boiled. He'd spin me around the island, one hand on my waist, the other holding a wooden spoon like a microphone. I'd laugh until my sides hurt, until the music faded and we were just swaying, my cheek against his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. Those dances always ended the same. He'd dip me low, eyes locked on mine, and I'd feel the question hanging between us. Some nights, I stepped back. Some nights, I didn't.
The first time we stayed in the same bed, it was after a nightmare. I jolted awake at 3 a.m., convinced I heard Mark's key in the lock. Jake found me in the hallway, shaking. Without a word, he led me to the guest room, tucked me under his arm, and stroked my hair until I fell asleep. I woke to sunlight striping the walls, and his fingers tracing lazy circles on my shoulder. "Nothing has to happen," he murmured. I turned to face him. But what if I wanted to? His answer was a kiss, slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing the shape of my mouth. We spent the whole morning tangled in sheets, learning the map of each other's laughter lines and freckles. When he kissed the hollow beneath my ear, I shivered so hard the headboard tapped the wall. When I traced the scar on his ribcage, bike crash, age 12, he caught my wrist and pressed my palm over his heart so I could feel it gallop. We never rushed. Every touch felt like a promise and an apology at once. I'd close my eyes and see colors behind my lids, deep indigo when he brushed my hair back, gold when his thumb grazed my wrist. The world narrowed to the inch of skin where we connected. Guilt lived in the bathroom mirror. I'd brush my teeth, staring at the woman Mark kissed goodbye, wondering how she could smile at him on Sunday and melt for his brother on Wednesday. But then Jake would knock on the doorframe, holding 2 mugs of coffee, and the guilt dissolved under the warmth of his grin. We made rules to keep the lie tidy. No marks above the collarbone. Sheets in the washer before Mark's plane landed. Never in the bed I shared with my husband. We broke Rule 3 the night Jake found me crying in the walk-in closet. Mark had called to say his flight was delayed again, and I'd cracked under the weight of missing him and wanting Jake in the same breath. Jake knelt, gathered me up, and carried me to the master bed, because it was closer. We sank into the mattress that still smelled like Mark's cologne, and for the first time, I didn't fight it. Jake whispered my name like a prayer, hands gentle, reverent. I arched into every caress, chasing the feeling of being utterly known. Afterward, we lay staring at the ceiling fan, fingers laced. "This is wrecking me," I said. "Me too. But I can't stop." "Me neither." We fell asleep like that, limbs tangled, the ceiling fan clicking overhead. I woke before dawn, heart pounding, and slipped back to the guest room. Jake was already stripping the bed. We moved like conspirators, silent and efficient. By the time Mark's key turned in the lock, that afternoon the house smelled like lemon cleaner and normalcy. Mark hugged me hard, told me he'd missed his wife. I hugged back, eyes closed, tasting Jake on my lies. Summer bled into fall. The lies got heavier. Jake started leaving little notes in the coffee canister, under my pillow, once taped inside the cereal box. "You snore like a freight train, and it's adorable." I'd smile, then panic, then hide them in a shoebox on the top shelf. We got reckless. One Thursday, Mark's flight was canceled due to weather. Jake was in the shower when my phone buzzed. "Home in 90 minutes. Surprise!" I banged on the bathroom door. Jake stepped out dripping, towel low on his hips. We stared at each other, adrenaline spiking. He dressed in 30 seconds, grabbed his keys, and was gone before the garage door finished opening. Mark walked in carrying roses. I took them with shaking hands. That night, we made love. Mechanical, dutiful. Mark fell asleep smiling. I stared at the dark, tears sliding into my ears, wondering how long I could live split down the middle. Jake and I fought the next week. First real fight. He wanted to tell Mark. I laughed until I cried. He'd never forgive either of us. "Maybe he should know," Jake said. "Maybe we're cowards for hiding." I told him to leave. He did. For 9 days. Longest 9 days of my life. Mark noticed I was quiet, blamed work stress. I let him. On day 10, Jake showed up at 2 a.m., rain-soaked, eyes red. "I can't do this without you," he said. I pulled him inside, kissed the rain from his lashes, and we made up on the laundry room floor because it was farthest from the bedroom. Slow, desperate, close, half on. I bit his shoulder to stay quiet. He buried his face in my neck and shuddered. We reset the rules, added a new one. Feelings stay in the house. No text that could be screenshot, no future talk. Just the moment. But moments stack up. By Christmas, we'd memorized each other, the exact pitch of a sigh, the way goosebumps rose when I traced his spine. I knew the freckle on his left hip bone tasted faintly of salt. He knew pressing his thumb just below my collarbone made me melt. Mark planned a New Year's ski trip for just the two of us. Jake's face when I told him, shuddered, polite. "Have fun," he said. I almost canceled. Almost. In Aspen, Mark proposed again. New ring, bigger diamond, down on one knee in the snow. I said yes through chattering teeth. That night, I called Jake from the hotel balcony, voice low. "I'm still yours when I get home." Silence. Then, "Be sure, Em, because I'm done sharing." Back from Aspen, the house felt like a stage set. Mark beamed, showed everyone the ring. Jake avoided family dinner. 3 weeks later, Mark left for Vegas. Trade show, 5 nights. Jake didn't text. I paced, drank too much wine, finally drove to his apartment. He opened the door in sweatpants, hair a mess, eyes wary. "I choose you," I said. He pulled me inside, kicked the door shut, and we didn't make it past the hallway. Coats on the floor, backs against the wall, hands frantic. I cried into his mouth. Not sad tears, just overflow. He carried me to bed, laid me down like something precious, and we moved together until the world blurred. After, he traced the new ring on my finger. "Take it off when you're here." I did. We spent the whole 5 days in his apartment, cooking breakfast naked, napping tangled, showering together because the hot water lasted longer. I learned he hums when he chops onions. He learned I steal the covers and apologize in my sleep. On the last night, we slow danced in his living room to an old jazz playlist. No lights, just the glow from the street lamp. He spun me out, pulled me back, rested his forehead against mine. "I love you, Em." The words hung there, fragile and true. I couldn't say them back, not yet, but I kissed him until we were breathless. Mark came home to a spotless house and a wife who couldn't meet his eyes. That night, he reached for me. I froze. He felt it, rolled away, hurt. "What's wrong?" "Headache," I lied. The distance grew. Mark worked late. I volunteered for extra shifts at the animal shelter. Jake and I met in parking lots, once in the back of his Jeep under a blanket of stars. Every stolen minute felt like fire. Then Mark found the shoebox. I came home to him sitting on the bedroom floor, notes spread around him like fallen leaves. His face, God, I'll never forget it. Not anger, worse. Betrayal so deep it looked like grief. "How long?" he asked, voice cracked. I couldn't speak. Jake arrived 20 minutes later. Mark had texted him to come. The 3 of us stood in the living room, air thick enough to choke on. Mark looked between us, piecing it together. "My own brother," he whispered. Jake started to explain. Mark punched him. Once. Hard. Jake didn't block it. Blood bloomed on his lip. I screamed. Mark stormed out, tires squealing. Jake and I sat on the couch, inches apart, miles away. "What now?" he asked. I don't know," I said. Mark stayed at a hotel. Jake went to a friend's. I rattled around the house like a ghost. 3 days of silence. Then Mark came back at dawn, eyes bloodshot. We sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling between us. "I want the truth," he said. "All of it." So I told him. Not graphic, just the timeline, the feelings, the lies. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. Do you love him? I thought of Jake's laugh, the way he knew how I took my tea, the ache when he wasn't there. Yes, I said, but I love you too. Differently. Longer. Mark nodded slow. I can't live with half of you, Em. I know. He moved out that weekend. Jake wanted me to move in. I couldn't, not yet. The divorce papers came faster than I expected. Mark kept the house, I kept the dog. Jake and I tried. God, we tried. First month was bliss. Cooking together, waking up wrapped around each other, no more hiding. But cracks showed. Every time I saw Mark's number on a bill, guilt stabbed. Jake got jealous of memories. I got scared of new ones. 6 months in, we fought over nothing. Whose turn to buy milk, and everything. Whose fault the marriage ended. I realized the thrill had been the secrecy. Without it, we were just two people who hurt someone we loved. I ended it on a Tuesday. Jake cried. I cried harder. Now I live in a one-bedroom near the shelter. Mark and I meet for coffee sometimes. Awkward, careful, but healing. Jake moved to Colorado for a job. We don't speak. Some nights I still dream of firelight on his cheekbones, the way his hand fit mine. I wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. To anyone reading this, secrets corrode. Love isn't enough if it's built on someone else's pain. I lost a husband and a lover to learn that. If you've ever stood at a crossroads like this, tell me in the comments, what would you have done? And if my story kept you up, subscribe. There's more where this came from.